GM's Corner, a Brewster Baseball Association podcast where we put general managers on the hot seat and try to steal all of their very best secrets. I am Ron Collins, General Manager of the Yellow Springs Nine, and I am here with Jouve Crawford, General Manager of the Baghdad Kings, which means that together we are making history because this is the first time that we've had an active UMEBA GM in the hot corner since the time of the UMEBA's inception. So I am really stoked to have you here, Jouve. Welcome aboard, and thanks for your time here today.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you having me.
Got to have something to do to fill up the time, right?
Yeah, not much to do over here.
What we have generally done with these general managers corners is give folks a little bit of time to get familiar with all of our new GMs and so forth. And you have been in the league for about 6 months, so you're a little bit of a clean slate for most folks, I would guess. So let me start with asking you questions around, what is your background? Your application says you're from Jamaica, Queens. Work as a security individual at Madison Square Gardens. Maybe talk to me a little bit about where you're from and how that came about.
Yeah, so originally I was born in Brooklyn and moved over and grew up pretty much in South Jamaica, Queens. It's a great community. It's just when you're from there, it's a great community. Usually everybody has those areas where if you don't know the person that comes to your neighborhood, they tend to mess with you. But it's a good community. And as far as Madison Square Garden, which is weird, it's weird to work there because I'm not a fan of the Knicks or any type of team that plays in Madison Square Garden. But I do security there, and it's great. It's probably one of the fewest jobs I've ever complained about. So
how did you come about being employed at Madison Square?
It's funny because when I was 17, 18, I had a cousin that did work for Madison Square Garden, and I never took him serious when he told me to apply because he could get me in. And then as I got older, I decided to take on security. So I applied just randomly, and I didn't even expect them to call me back so fast, and that's how I got the job.
Now, are you interested in security / criminal justice, other types of careers in that path, or is it just kind of a stopgap until something else?
Well, yeah, so I go to John Jay, which is a really big or really popular school for criminal justice. People do come from different states to come to this school. And yeah, as far as different career paths, law enforcement would probably be where I would be headed mainly. Definitely more as law enforcement, not as a lawyer. I think you really have to love being a lawyer to do it. It's a lot of reading and writing, and that's definitely not me. But more as like maybe a cop or a port authority or FBI. All these places come to my school to recruit us anyways. FBI, CIA. And different police departments in different cities of all around the country. So Phoenix, Portland, that's as far as that. They come to my school, and that's pretty much where I'll be headed.
There you go.
Not Portland or Phoenix, but actually maybe Phoenix, because I hear it's nice over there. But other than that, yeah, I definitely look to move to a different city and go into law enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I live in Tucson, which is about an hour and a half or 2 hours away from Phoenix. The climate is such a different thing. I grew up in the Middle East, in the Mideast, or Midwest, I guess. I'm too caught up in the UMEBA in the Middle East. I'm essentially from Indiana and Kentucky, is where I spent most of my growing up time, which is hot and humid and snowy in the winter times, but the heat that is here, it's cliche to say is dry heat, right? As long as you're not out in the as long as you're not flat out in the sun and it's 110 degrees, it's actually quite comfortable. But once you're in the sun and it's 105, 110 degrees, it gets pretty You don't want to be in the sun really long that way.
Yeah, I get it.
So you talked about not being a fan of the Knicks or anyone else who plays in Madison Square Garden. What is your first? How old are you, Jove?
I'm actually 25 years old.
25. Oh, to be 25 again. Oh my
Oh
goodness.
yeah, and I sit here thinking I'm old. So yeah,
Of course. I mean, and no matter what age you are, you're either really old or really young, depending on where you're who you're with.
yeah.
And time flows forever. And 25 years old and being in the middle of a quarantine summer has got to be annoying, without any
Oh
question.
yeah. Can't even do anything no more.
There you go. What is your what are your sports? What are your relationship? What are your fandoms in?
So originally my first sport, well, it still is my first sport, but basketball is my main sport. I played that all my life. Then I will follow that by football. Surprisingly, as much as I play out of the park, baseball is actually like my fourth and fifth sport. So if I was to make a list, it would be basketball, football, then it would be mixed martial arts, so like UFC, stuff like
Hmm.
that. Then it would be tennis, and then hockey and baseball would be at the same, like would be at a tie. I'll probably lean towards baseball a little bit more because I know a lot more that's going on more than hockey. But yeah, but tennis, I love tennis, so that would go over. That goes over baseball for me too. So, but I
Yeah.
think playing out of the park, I've actually grown a little bit more into baseball again. Because I used to watch baseball all the time growing up, but then I stopped. I started getting a little bored, and now after playing out of the park for a couple years, now I actually try to watch baseball all the time. But now the season's canceled, so I can't really do much about it.
That is among all the other possible bummers. All the other biggest bummers. The biggest bummer is you're sitting there in the middle of not being able to do anything, and there's no sports on TV. So
Yeah, that's got to be the biggest pill to swallow for me. Staying in the house doesn't bother me, but the fact that I can't watch no new sports, it kills me every day.
yeah, well, I can actually relate to your list, especially as a younger person growing up in Louisville high school and college. Basketball was
Right.
always my thing, and I played basketball year round. I played all the other sports too in the season, but I played basketball year round and played high school ball and into college intramurals and things like that. But I was clearly never good enough, or I didn't want it bad enough. I'll put it that way, to get much further than I got. I go to the parks and stuff in the middle of summer when all the kids are out there playing, and the guys who are going to make it because those are the ones that are playing 8 and 10 hours a day,
Yeah.
and go from there. So, how did you actually find your way to Out of the Park and the Brewster?
For the Brewster, I was originally in my first league, and they started to slow down a little bit in terms of simulation days, like amounts of sim days per week.
Hmm.
And we were usually used to 4 days, and it cut down to three, and we had a really slow off season. So because of transferring of commissioners, so and I was at this point I've started to actually understand what to do, and I actually knew what the hell I was doing in out of the park now, like actually how to GM.
Hmm.
So in my head, I'm thinking I need more action, so I need to get into another league. So then I just randomly looked on the forums, and I found this league, and then I read the whole thing. I read participation points, podcast articles, and I thought my original league was extremely active when it came to that, but this league pretty much blows it out of the water when it came to activity. I see thousands of articles, and consistent too. It's not like because it's been over 5+ years of this website, is because y'all consistently still upload articles, and I actually paid attention to that. And it helps when you see the commissioner on one of the like the out of the park like with the out of the park devs
Hmm.
podcast. I actually listened to that before I even joined just to see, and I was like, this guy actually knows the dev, and they say like they talk to him like they know him too. So I was like, okay, this must be a real legit league, and the history of it. I've seen that y'all started, not current year, y'all started in the past, and that just tells me that the longevity is there, and there's no quit, and it's not me joining into a league that's going to end anytime soon.
Yeah.
So that drew me to the league as well.
Yeah, I think especially once you get into the whole context of what online leagues are and the different cultures that spin up. Every league has its own culture and all that other good malarkey, when you start to understand what Matt has created here as the GM or as the commissioner, and some of the, there's still a core of 4 or 5 of the very, very original GMs that roll through. Clearly, this is a league that is, I'll call it bigger than your usual league. How did you feel trying to get into the culture of this wild, big, clicky, clicky group?
I thought, as far as being welcomed in, I thought everybody was, welcomed me in properly. I felt like I belonged in the league. As far as, I think it's a little bit of, it depends on the person. I think it could be intimidating when it comes to writing articles and participating in podcasts. But I think once you figure out your timing, I felt, because I haven't dished out any articles as of yet, but being that I'm in quarantine right now and I'm starting to fully understand my team, I decided to work on my pace. So now I know what to write about and pretty good content to write out since I've had experience with articles. So I felt that I appreciated that there was no pressure to displaying any content. But of course, that's what I want to do, and that's going to be soon to come. So I've enjoyed my experience coming into the league. Nothing negative about it.
How have you felt on the whole being a UMEBA guy coming into the UMEBA, which is a weird little league, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and it's not so much weird in the OOTP-ness, it's more weird in the way it connects up into the BBA. Do you feel like you're pretty comfortable with the flow of personnel these days, or are you still kind of searching through, BBA waiver time periods and trade deadlines and the Rule 5, Rule 6, Rule 7? I noticed that you picked up a Rule 7 guy this year who seems like he's going to be a real a benefit to you, which is that's a unique rule to us. I don't think there's another league that has a Rule 6, Rule 7
Right. That's
thing.
my so that's that was my first time ever seeing that. I'm just pretty much just used to Rule 5. And yeah, you're right. When I jumped into UMEBA, it was definitely weird because I didn't even think you could do expansion leagues like that. So I started when it was only 4 per each side. Now we did the expansion and we added 5 per each for both divisions in UMEBA. Definitely a different type of feeling because you are challenged with a little bit more of the budget, even though we did just get a little budget increase. So it's definitely I like the challenge because some of the players in free agency, some will just straight up tell you that they're not going to sign with you because they don't want to be in Baghdad or any other place like that.
Hmm.
And so you really do have to sit down and look at the game and file through some of these players. I got lucky with one of my guys who just happened to hit like 50 home runs last season, and I was surprised that he even signed with me. But I actually do like the challenge. I'm glad that in terms of personnel, um, I did manage to join. I did manage to bring in all the managers and coaches, which is funny because I originally didn't know that I needed to do it. I wasn't used to coaches until it was brought up by Matt, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't even realize I needed coaches and stuff. I'm used to just scouts."
Hmm.
So I brought them all in. And as far as just personnel, as far as the GM standpoint, I'm glad that we finally have it full. I seen recently that this is the first time we've had a full-on active UMEBA roster in terms of GMs. So it's definitely going to be a bit more fun. I find it way more fun playing against actual players than the computer GMs. I've never liked it like that. So yeah.
Yeah, we have had time, moments where we've had the entire UMEBA filled up. We're now filled up after expansion for the first time, I think, completely, which is good.
Right.
We don't like to have any teams that are completely, on computer control. And in fact, if we end up having a team that is like that, you will occasionally see a BBA GM will step into the UMEBA seat for a short period just to kind of keep it going. Because you're right, it's the whole reason to play in an online league is to play against other human beings. What is your experience in working with solo out of the park?
I played it for about a day and then I stopped playing. I just couldn't. I just don't feel like I didn't feel the excitement
Hmm.
making trades or just after just running maybe a week of a sim. There's nothing to talk about because I'm not going to talk to the computer about me going 2-5 or going 5-0. There's no excitement out of it. And making trades with computers has always been easy because you can always find a way to manipulate it. I mean, I'm guessing there's a difficulty setting you could put into that, but either way, it's not. I'm not picking the mind of a human being, which is better because a computer is always going to have a different mind of a human. Some people might see something that they really want, or they might have a different input in a trade because just because of what they believe, which could be completely different from the computer.
Alrighty, so talk to me a little bit about your Baghdad Kings. What are you trying to accomplish with them when you look at your roster and skill sets? Do you see holes? Just where are you at right now as far as the Baghdad Kings are concerned?
So I joined like maybe 2 seasons ago, and we lost, I believe, 100 games. And then the next season, we was in running of a wild card run, and then we just pretty much forgot how to play baseball, so we got knocked out of the playoff run, or just the wild card run. This season looks a little bit different with 18 and 13, and I originally thought the biggest hole I had was the starting pitching position, but apparently, we're first in ERA for starters, and I thought my bullpen was the weakest. And for now, and of course it's early though, so all that can change. But we're second in bullpen ERA. I knew my biggest strength was hitting in terms of home runs, because led by Raul Hernandez, who already has 14 home runs.
Yeah,
So even though it's not going to happen,
he's kind of kicking butt right now, is what he's doing.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
technically called
even
kicking butt.
Yeah, even though he's not gonna get 73 home runs, which he's projected to get, he's probably gonna get 50 again. And like he's definitely the guy I didn't expect to sign with me. I'm actually surprised every single time. But and then I added a few more guys, especially thanks to that budget increase. That really helped a lot. So I added a bunch of guys that can fill in regards to defense because we lack defense completely. And also just hitting other than Raul Hernandez. I brought in a guy from AAA last season, Marquez. Oh, I'm sorry, not even Angel Marquez. I brought in Griff Tannen, and he's doing well for me, batting 340 pretty much with 8 home runs, and he's looking good. I was questionable about bringing him in, but he looked pretty good. I thought he was ready, and all of this has been a test for me, mainly because I wasn't used to these type of ratings. But I think I got the hang of it now. So far, it's a little too early, but I do think that my team has a solid run for the playoffs. It'll be a little bit difficult, of course, because we have that expansion team now. So I really do have to come in second now, whereas last season, I just didn't have to be the worst team in the division to
There
make
you
the
go.
wild card at least. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the UMEBA in particular is when I came into the Brewster universe, we had a European league rather than a Middle Eastern league, the EBA. And so I took a team in the EBA for a short while before moving into the BBA. And it was kind of similar in the sense that the skill sets are, what you see in the UMEBA today are a lot of major league players who are not quite there for the BBA, AAA players who are probably going to get stuck in AAA for a lot of the BBA time period. So you get this interesting skill set mix and depth mix going on that is you have to be in the middle of it to really fully understand it and dig down deep into it. So that first year, my guess is you're kind of running blind. This year, my guess is you're starting to figure out what skill sets are working in the UMEBA. And it's going to be even more interesting because you've mentioned a time or two about the budget increase. I don't know exactly where Matt is, but my guess, my feeling is from talking to him in other places that, fundamentally what's happened is we started the UMEBA off as kind of this low budget, independent league. And then each 2 years or so, it's like bumping things up a little bit. So the whole concept within the fictional world of the Brewster is that the baseball in the Middle East is coming up. And I doubt that we'll ever make it completely at par with the BBA. But the whole concept is that it becomes a much more powerful league and starts to draw resources away from the BBA. So us BBA GMs need to be more prudent in the way we manage our manage our leagues. So, and then beyond that, the whole concept was that we knew we were a complex league, and so we wanted a place for new GMs to come in and get comfortable with our league before jumping into the BBA. But we actually run into situations where we put GMs in a bit of a sticky place because sometimes they actually would prefer to stay in the UMEBA rather than move into the BBA. So let me ask you from that aspect, if how indebted. I was talking with Vic yesterday or the day before, and he was saying, well, when he was asked to go from Mumbai into his current Chicago, he had to double take because he was really excited about staying with Mumbai. If you are you looking to try to move into the BBA, or are you kind of getting deep enough into Baghdad now that you would stick there by preference?
Um, so I think the longevity goal would be for me to move up to the main league BBA. But unfortunately, I have a horrible habit of being attached to a team once I get to know it enough. And especially when I pretty much know everybody's name at a certain point, which is almost done. So that's when the attachment just really grows, and I hate to leave them. But the ultimate goal is to go to BBA. I think that I would want to do that regardless, despite the attachment.
Mhm.
But my goal first is I want to at least make a deep playoff run, at least to this team. I wouldn't want to, especially now that I'm seeing them improve a lot more. I wouldn't want to jump in without completely doing nothing with this team. So, and that might happen this season where I actually see a deep playoff run. But as far as a future into being moved up, if the opportunity came, yeah, I would definitely go to BBA. I miss my guys, so I pretty much just check up on them, or whoever's the next GM to take that team. If they're doing something wrong, I'll message them. What are you doing to my team? Something like that.
Gotta
But
crack the whip, man.
yeah, it'll kill me if they ruin them or something or if they trade Raul Hernandez or something like that. So I'll definitely be checking on that team nonstop. But other than that, yeah, I would definitely move to the major league,
Yeah.
BBA, especially because I like the challenge of going against a lot more teams.
Mhm.
Just the challenge of it's going to be really hard to make that playoff run now when you have 20 plus teams that you in the same league as you. So
Yeah, without a doubt. And you never know where the future is going to lie. One of the things that I like the most about this league is that um, its player movement is all over the place. Like, I look down your roster and I see the name Tristan Alfama, which is the guy who I ended up having to release in order to afford to
hmm
bring another guy in, right? And so when you signed him, I was like, damn, I was actually hoping he would come back to me as a minor league player, and
oh no,
I'm
not with
in.
me here.
Yeah, yeah, he's having a good year for you so far. So I'm rooting for you with keeping him productive.
I
Um,
appreciate that. Yeah, I'm definitely in the like when it was free agency time. I was looking through every single person, and I'd be surprised when I look at them. oh wow, this guy used to be in BBA, and now I'm about to be able to get him. And I definitely like to look at the guys that was in BBA, and not even just the ones that was in the majors, because UMEBA is a little bit of a, like, I guess, in terms of skill, it's not as I guess you could say, like, in a basketball standpoint, NBA is NBA, and then say like G League is like the lower, like a little bit less in terms of skill. I
Hmm.
would like to say maybe UMEBA would be as, if it was to make an example, something like that. So even if I see people in the AAA for your league, I'll even look at them. Like if I see their stats in AAA, I could translate that and think, oh, maybe he could do something in UMEBA, or if
Right.
not, just bring him into my minor leagues, because we're not the level of talent is not going to be on par as the main major league, of course.
Yeah, and I think the ability to calibrate and look forward and see what players are possibly out there is something like, Brett Schroeder, who's with the Las Vegas Hustlers now, started essentially was the primary GM who was jumping into and helping us craft the amoeba. And so you see one of the reasons why Jerusalem has been so strong is that he managed that team for some time. I don't think he would have come to the BBA if it wasn't Las Vegas that was available to him. He had made a direct statement that he was going to stay with Jerusalem forever, but but then Las Vegas came and it's like the granddaddy of organizations within the BBA. So I think he pretty much had to do that. But the whole thing that he was talking about for the first year or two of the UMEBA was how unique and different the player acquisition process is and how you have to look at things so directly. So being a part of the UMEBA, it feels to me, I'm going to make a statement and have you react to it. It feels to me like being part of the UMEBA and doing a good job with it entails scanning and paying attention to those tweener skill sets. It feels like by accident we've actually created a really good hotbed for learning so that when a UMEBA GM would move from UMEBA into the BBA, they might actually be even ahead of the curve in understanding some of those ratings nuances. How does that feel to you? Does that seem real
um,
or am I making that up?
no, actually, I at this point of my out of the park career playing, I do agree with that. Like if you asked me this about in the summer that just passed, then
Hmm.
I think you're crazy, because I was being coached by GMs in other leagues on why I was doing this wrong. Why am I looking at this wrong? I was really coached and groomed on how to actually look at certain things from to making a constructing a decent team. And yeah, I do think I won't say that I'll be ahead of when you say ahead of the curve, you mean just ahead of like the learning curve for a typical learning GM? Is that what you mean?
Sure, and maybe even for some of the GMs who have maybe not paid as much attention to their minor leagues and so forth, that feels like you would have perhaps even a deeper knowledge of some of their own some of their minor leagues.
So
but
yeah,
I'm putting
yeah.
myself into certain situations because I spend almost 80% of my time paying attention to minor leagues. So
Yeah, so yeah, I definitely learned a lot over the past few months before, especially a couple months before I joined this league. I pretty much can say that I've taken the game a lot serious, and I learned exactly what to look at when it comes to stats and ratings and what exactly to look for. I had no clue that I needed to really care about range for a shortstop. I didn't even pay attention to stuff like that. So I used to have guys with if we was to translated to our league's ratings,
mhm.
I'd have guys with a 4 range and think that I'm okay because the guy can hit. And a shortstop, I wasn't even paying attention that a shortstop was pretty much like one of the most demanding positions when it comes to fielding. And it's weird because I played baseball and I didn't even think of that because I wasn't looking at myself as, oh well, I had 12 range when I used to play. I was just thinking I was pretty good at baseball. So I learned about all that stuff. I didn't know what a FIP was
Hmm.
from pitching. I didn't know what that meant, and I didn't even know what a ERA was.
There you
I
go.
didn't really care about the stats and stuff like that. So I knew exactly. I learned pretty much what I needed to just the tools that I needed in terms of playing this game and just knowing what, pretty much in short, I know how to make a plan for my team, whether it's a long-term plan or a short-term.
There you
If
go.
I think that my team can make it, then I'll go for it. If not, then I'll play the waiting game and construct my minor league properly and draft properly and free agency
Yeah.
and what trades to do, stuff like that. So yeah, I think I'm definitely not the learning curve on. I think I'm a little bit ahead of the learning curve when it comes to that because I'm not as much of a novice as a new GM would be.
There you go. Well, let me take this in a different direction real quick. Often do this lightning round kind of idea, right, where I ask you a series of questions, and sometimes it goes really quick, and other times it meanders a little bit. But let me sit you down, and we'll just see what comes from these questions that I've got on my mind.
Okay.
Okay. Favorite NBA player of all time?
Allen Iverson.
How come?
Uh, I grew. He was the little guy. I thought his tattoos were cool, and I just love the fact that he was usually the smallest guy on the court, but he played like it was a championship game every single time. So I loved his heart when it
He
came. Basically, you can say it like that.
he had no fear.
Exactly. He played injured. He gave it his all every single time,
Favorite college
and
player?
I guess you could say maybe let's just go with Michael Jordan. Just because I've seen clips of his college days. I definitely didn't live to see it, but that's who my father cared about, liked because he was a UNC fan. I watched his highlights, and that's who I would go with.
UNC, is that your team by de facto rote, or you have somebody else who's your favorite college team?
No, that's yeah, just mainly because it was influenced by my father. That's
Of
about
course.
it.
There you go. Um, Most important traits you look at in hiring an OOTP manager.
Whether if they're I guess easygoing, if they're easygoing or not. I don't really like having GMs that are hard asses all the time. I like guys that can make the clubhouse good. And at least for now, this is my first time ever doing hiring managers. So
Hmm.
for now, I like to go for the easygoing ones because I care about the clubhouse being happy.
There you go. That makes sense. OOTP strategy settings. How do you use them?
I usually start off with Sabermatic, and then I don't even know if I'm saying it properly, but I think I am.
Mhm.
And then I adjust it a little bit. Typically, I'll have it where they don't steal a lot of bases, but then I'll go straight to their set player strategy, like the individual player strategy, and
Right.
override it. So if you're fast, I'll make you steal a lot of bases, or if you're good at base running, I'll adjust that to make you have a more of aggressive base running. Uh, Run the bases more aggressive. But yeah, typically it's like that. I don't typically have pitch around on. I don't usually do that, and I never really. And I always favor the lefty righty matchup.
There you go. What's the first thing you look at after a sim? You download the new file. Where do you start?
Standings. I need to see where I am. I always do it. It's a habit. Also because you get to see the league leaders on the sides if you have that set up on your screen.
Hmm.
I just like looking at that first. It's a habit.
How come?
I'll just sometimes I like to see if my players are there. And it's always nice to see like Raul Hernandez always there when it comes to home runs. At least I know I have a sure guy to look at. But just to check out what everybody else in the league is doing as well. So I like to see how many wins have I had in the last 10, or or anybody in my division, or stuff like that.
What is the most memorable moment that you have had either at a sporting event or while playing a sporting event?
I would say just running a regular basketball scrimmage, and my first dunk was actually on somebody. So I guess I'd say that would be my most memorable.
My next dunk will be my first dunk. not counting the ones that I had on the 9 foot goal that I set up in my backyard so that I could dunk. So yes, I'm incredibly jealous. That you can read into that all that you want. One thing that you wish the UMEBA did that we do not do.
Y'all actually did vote on it, but it would be the add the fourth day for a sim. But that's not really that major. That would be the one thing, but it's not major for me. It's just the impatient trait that I have engraved in my body or my personality. So, and it's just the anticipation because I'm always excited for a sim. So, whenever it's not a sim day, then I start getting a little impatient because I'm always like that. So that's it. It's nothing. It's not a. It doesn't need to change. But obviously, my vote, if you look on the website, I voted for the fourth day.
There you
But
go.
that would be the only thing.
Alrighty, well, you have survived the lightning round. It is traditional that I let you turn the counter or turn the tables on me and ask me any questions that you would like me to talk about. So if you
Okay.
have anything,
So,
feel free to shoot away, and if not, we'll go into the last segment, sir.
okay. So I guess I'll start off. Favorite sports team?
Ooh, favorite sports team, Louisville Cardinals basketball, 100%. Live and die by 'em.
Are you a mixed martial arts fan?
Not directly. I mean, I was more of a boxing guy back in Louisville because, Muhammad Ali and the Louisville Lip was like the guy. But I moved more into basketball, baseball. If my preference as a kid was football, but I was so small. I was like 5'2", 102 pounds as a freshman, and I went out for went out to play freshman football at my high school. And the guy sitting next to me was a guy named Rodney Francis. We called him Hercules. He was the running back, and he's like 180 pounds of pure muscle at the time. And I remember sitting down on the first day that I went out to try out for football. And I sat down next to him, and he had his shirt off, and I just looked at him and I said, "Holy God, no!"
Yeah,
Um, so yeah,
yeah. My father was actually good at football. Go ahead,
basketball was
man.
my main sport when I was in high school because I could actually play defense and handle the ball, but was not an offensive force. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, my father was actually really good at football, but he was so skinny that his mother didn't even let him play. So his basketball was his thing too. Um, what's your plans for your season for BBA?
Oh goodness. Right now my team is on a little bit of cruise control because I'm so young. I've brought up most of my guys. I would love to find a good, solid right-handed hitting outfielder. I keep thinking that I've got him, and this year I should have him because my outfield is very much a platoon situation. But they're all just kind of I don't know if they're on hunger strike or what. They're just not doing the job. I paid a bunch of money. One of the reasons why I released Alfama that you picked up is I needed
Right.
I needed the money to sign Grant Lee, and so I was successful in getting him to join us, and he's just now started to get out of a little bit of a funk. So knock on wood, maybe he'll keep going. The bottom line is that barring injuries, I think I'm in pretty good shape for the next year or two. Um, but injuries happen, and you never know. And you've probably been around long enough to know that my basic plan for every year is to win 95 games, and then by de facto now I get into October and I lose. So um, if my team ever wins Alandis, I think the world might come to an end. I just don't know. So
Okay. I got maybe one more question. When signing a player, drafting, free agency, trading, whatever, do does personality traits play a factor into who you would select, and if so, which personality factor in that player?
um, I'm a big fan of personality factors. So yes, they do make a difference to me. The number one that I care about is work ethic. Generally, well, it kind of depends on the age of the player too, right? If it's an older player, I'm really more interested in kind of like, oh, greed and
Leader.
leadership and
Yeah.
things like that. Especially if I'm wanting to keep the guy around for several years, greed becomes important because then maybe he'll sign for a little less money. And I tend to run, within about 10 to 15 million of the salary cap, sometimes a little higher than that. Right now I'm up around, I think, 108 or 109 million dollars, and so I've got almost no space. So people signing for less money is actually a potential value, so I can keep some of my younger guys around. But if on a younger guy, I'm looking for work ethic and intelligence, and things like that, because I want them to develop. Um, Now, the big $64 million question that is often discussed is how big of an impact do those things really make? I don't know that they make a very huge impact, but I fairly well believe that they do make a impact from a lot of the work that I've done. And even a 0.001% impact is an impact that I'm willing to do. The other main thing is I just, the whole fictional aspect of the league. I like the guys that work hard. I want to be around guys that work hard, right? It doesn't
Yeah,
matter whether it
that's
makes
right.
any
Yeah.
difference or not. I just like them
Yeah.
better. On the other hand, it is also fun occasionally to grab a guy. Today's a high profile jerk is Carlos Camacho. There was another guy before Camacho, is Travis Lara. It's fun to have those guys on the team sometimes because if something goes wrong with them, you can write some off the wall newsletters and team newses and things like that about this jerk who does whatever. So, um, so that's how
Yeah.
I mean, I look at personalities as if they probably do make some difference in actual gameplay. So I pay attention to them, but for the most part, they're more fun from the perspective of being able to create narratives on my team.
Okay, yeah, I have a similar theory that I do think that personality traits play a factor. I've seen an article of somebody do this, but even just in my own experience, sometimes I think just the superstar potential
Hmm.
and the work ethic, some of that can play a part. I've seen guys that I've had with horrible work ethic and intelligence, but they become, gold glovers, silver sluggers, MVP candidates because just their superstar potential. And then I've seen guys with high work ethic, but they have the lowest potential ever. And then they become guys with ultimate power potential and contact and great fielding and speed. So yeah, I do think it does play a little difference. I don't know the percentage. I wish I knew because then I would just draft a certain, I would draft the right people. But
There you go.
I do agree. Yeah, I do think that it does play a part.
Yeah, I think it does play a part, and I think I said among the things that I like to think about is I don't really know that I want to know the exact impacts, but I do like to know that there are impacts, and I do like to know what direction the arrows point in, right? Because it makes me feel better about the energy that I put into my team. But even if they didn't make a difference, I would still probably behave in similar ways. I mean, who knows? Well, let me ask.
Right.
If you have an ideal Jouve Crawford team, what does it look like? Are you a pitching guy? Are you a power guy? Are you a speed guy? Are you a defense guy? What do you care about?
Um, I'd say that my most ideal team would be a highly stingy defensive team with and with that type of defense, I would just want somewhat above average pitching. It doesn't need to be. I don't need to have a DeGrom, Strasburg, Scherzer or Garrett Cole on my team all in one. I just need a pretty solid pitching rotation. And as far as power and speed, I'd actually rather speed. So far, I've never really had success except for so far this season with UMEBA with power. But I've seen many times people with good speed and gap power as well. Just to rack up a bunch of doubles and triples. I've seen that being really deadly for certain teams. So that would be what I would want. So
You
high defense, solid pitching, and extreme speed.
Gap power, you're speaking to my heart there, Jouve. I completely get
Yeah.
it. All righty, I think I've pretty much kind of run you through the mill of all the things that I've been thinking about. Is there anything you would like to close on specifically, or
No,
any
I think I'll
last
save
thoughts?
that for. I think I'll save that for later on in the season if you have me again, so I could, talk about my team. You know,
Well, I appreciate your time here today, and we'll definitely have to do this again. And stay
well,
safe.
thank you for having me.
Stay
You
safe
too.
out there in New York, man. I'm thinking about you.
I appreciate it. I haven't left the house in weeks because of this.
I'll try to take it easy. Write some good
All
TMs.
right. Okay. All right. Thanks, man.
The Brewster Baseball Association is an out-of-the-park baseball league commissionered by Mr. America himself, Matt Rechtenwald, and competed in by an amazing group of outstanding general managers. Check us out at montybrewster.net. You have been listening to the GM's Corner, a podcast where we put BBA GMs on the hot seat. Music is Cool Piano by Tigerius and is used under Creative Commons Attribution License. See you next time. Until then, have fun, be safe, and always remember that even a boring team news is worth 2 points.